Hey guys, Dan here. It's Dan Does Disney. Tim is with us.
Hey everybody!
Live for once. This is the first one we've done not over Zoom in 6 months probably.
The last one we did was
Was it even one of the musical ones, or was
it? It was Three Cabins. No, it was the first one.
No, it was the first one.
Saludos Amigos.
Saludos Amigos was the last one we did, and I think the only one we actually got to do live.
Yes.
Until Zoom took over, but that's fine. Now we're back. We'll do some over Zoom, some live, whatever. Well, I guess they're all live, but The Sword and the Rose is what we're talking about today. This is from 1953, the same year as the one I just did with Joe, Peter Pan. He actually released 3 in 1953. The next one we'll be talking about is from that same year as well. So this is one that's not on Disney+.
It is not.
So we had to share this DVD. This came directly from the Disney Movie Club, which I highly recommend. You actually can get this, though, on Amazon Prime. If you're interested in watching it, you can stream it for $3, and I think you can maybe even buy it for $15, which is kind of what they have there. So this is one of the England live-action ones that we've been talking about. We already did Treasure Island. We did Robin Hood and the Merry Men. Walt had this big contract with England for the money that he made overseas. Had to stay there, so he said, well, let's just do some different things over here. And he wanted to do a costume piece, a costume drama. And there was this book that was called When Knighthood Was in Flower from 1898. There was already 2 silent versions done of this movie, but he wanted to do his own stamp on it, his own take. I thought it was going to be a musical just because it's Walt Disney and everything seems to be, but there was actually no, I mean, there was a score, but there was no, like, singing from the actors in it. So this one cost $2 million to produce, which was more than Robin Hood, and the take was not nearly as much. It only made $2.5 million worldwide, only $1 million here in the States, so it did a lot better overseas. And not necessarily even in England either, because there was some stuff with the historical inaccuracies. I'm sure Tim's going to probably get into that part. But in some of the other territories, it made an okay amount of money. But because of that, it was never re-released in theaters, like a lot of the movies up to this point. In fact, we'll find, I guess, except for like the really, really popular kids ones, like probably the first Herbie the Love Bug and stuff, most of these early dramas were not re-released in theaters, because by this point he kind of had the Disneyland show going. That started in 55 or 56, so they ran this as a 2-part serialized movie on the Disneyland show, and people got to know it that way. This was the same team from Robin Hood. He kind of already had everybody in place over in England. He said, you know what, guys, I've got this other movie, why don't you go for it? However, there were a couple of new people on board, including the cinematographer Jeffrey Unsworth, who was an up-and-comer. This was his first big project, and he went on to do 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, or no, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Superman, the original Christopher Reeve movie. So he did a couple things there. And then we also had Peter Ellenshaw doing the set design and painting of the sets. He did 62 different sets for this movie, and Walt was so impressed with it that he essentially gave him a lifetime contract. So he worked on many, many Disney movies. I'm sure we'll hear his name after this in some other movies. And after his work on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, he actually moved to the U.S. and worked for Disney in California. So Walt basically made this movie because he wanted some sort of prestige picture for the Oscars. Ironically, he would win at the Oscars this very year for the movie we're going to talk about next week, the documentary. Do you remember the name of that?
The Living Desert.
The Living Desert, okay, which that is available on Disney+. We'll talk about that.
They just added it, like probably beginning of
because I was going to say, we looked for some of them a couple of months ago, and they weren't
looked,
on.
and the only place to find it was streaming on Amazon, so maybe they had a contract with them, and now almost all of the documentaries that we're going to be talking about are on Disney+.
Yeah, which is great, because there's a lot of them from the 50s specifically, but even after that there's sort of some. So anyway, so he had 3 movies in 53. He had the kids picture with Peter Pan. He had the real, intelligent picture with the documentary, and then he wanted this to be sort of his big prestige Best Picture nominee, and it did not happen. It did not go in his favor for that.
It makes sense to choose this property because I read that like the 1922 version, the silent one before this, was a big hit.
Oh, okay.
It was like one of the top grossing movies of that
year.
year.
Both the silent versions had the original title.
Yes.
This was the first one where they changed the title. In fact, when it ran on the Disneyland show, he didn't even call it Sword in the Rose. He went back to the original book title. Okay, so the one of the 20s was like a big hit.
1922 was a big hit. It starred Marion Davis. It was like her breakout role.
Okay.
And it made a lot of money in the time. I mean, it cost a lot of money in the time, too.
Right.
I think they said it was like the most expensive movie of its time.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I was like, oh, look at that.
And that's before the Oscars, so who knows? Maybe it would have been up for a bunch of awards. And that's all I really had. The only other thing was I found out that there was a cartoon serialization that I assume maybe they ran before Peter Pan or something, but it was basically in promotion for this movie. But Disney didn't even do it, which I thought was weird. King Features did it, which was doing like Popeye cartoons, I think, at the time. So I'm not exactly sure what I couldn't figure out a link there, but maybe it just ran before Peter Pan, so that was the contract. I don't know, but either way, so that's kind of the background on this movie, The Sword and the Rose. Tim's going to tell us about the plot. This is one where, unlike most of the ones we've done thus far recently, Treasure Island, people know the plot of that. Robin Hood, everybody knows. This is, I think, new to a lot of people. Certainly it was new to me. So let's hear about the plot of The Sword and the Rose.
Okay. Like Dan said, it's based off the novel When Knighthood Was in Bloom. Oh, no, When Knighthood Was in Flower.
Right. Yep.
By Charles Major. And it tells the quote-unquote true story of Mary Tudor, the younger sister of King Henry VIII, and how she falls in love with a new arrival at court, Charles Brandon. At the urging of Mary, King Henry makes Charles the captain of the guard, as he also tries to marry her off to the aging King Louis XII of France as part of a peace agreement. Mary's longtime suitor, the Duke of Buckingham, takes a dislike to Charles, as he is a commoner, and the Duke wants to marry Mary for himself. With everything stacked against Mary and Charles, can their love blossom and survive? Glennis Johns stars as Mary Tudor.
And who do we know her? What do we know her from?
While You Were Sleeping.
Oh, well, okay. Yes, While You Were Sleeping. She's the mom in Mary Poppins. Oh, she's Mrs. Banks, yeah.
Also,
you're right, While You Were Sleeping.
Also, While You're Sleeping, she plays the photographic aunt or something like that.
And what was her last role? Superstar with Mary Catherine Gallagher. And do you know, now that Olivia de Havilland has passed, she is the oldest living Oscar nominee. Oh. She never won, but she was nominated for a movie, I think, actually even before this, in the 40s, I believe it was. And she didn't win, but at 96 years old, she's still with us, and she is the oldest living nominee.
Yeah.
So,
Richard Todd, who was Robin Hood, returns, and he plays Charles Brandon. Also from Robin Hood, you have James Robertson Justice. He plays King Henry VIII. He was Little John in Robin Hood and His Merry Men. And then you have Michael Gough, G-O-U-G-H.
Gough, I would say, maybe.
And he plays the Duke of Buckingham. And surprisingly, all four of these lead actors reunite for Rob Roy.
He really kept the same cast and crew in
the
England.
Whole crew from this movie moves over to,
Rob Roy. Yeah.
So, that is the synopsis and the actors. I thought the acting was pretty good.
I think the acting was maybe the best part.
Yeah.
Certainly Glennis Johns is great in this.
Yes. I thought the chemistry between Johns and Todd was really quite well. It was there. There was quick dialogue between the two. I thought Mary had like a sharp mind and an even sharper tongue.
Yeah.
And
she's a very strong female character.
And
especially
Charles was the only one that could really keep up with them, and I felt like that made like their romance really, really bloom on screen and was justified.
Yeah, they were definitely good playing off of each other. I don't know if they had any history working together, but
the dialogue, it kind of almost reminded me of like Gilmore Girls. Just
it was very snappy
and witty. It just wasn't filled with pop culture references like Gilmore Girls.
Right. Yes, that's true.
So I feel like that was probably the strongest aspect of this movie.
Well, it's funny you say that. I didn't think Gilmore Girls. I probably should have, because now that you say that, I totally see the connection.
Yeah.
But because of that sort of rapid fire dialogue, this is, of all the things I've done, whether it be with you or with Joe on Dan Does Disney, I feel like this is the least Disney movie that we've done so far.
Yeah, if I saw this on TV, I would be like, I wouldn't think it was Disney.
Yeah. He certainly was trying for that departure.
Yeah. As you mentioned, there are some historical inaccuracies.
Yes.
First off, Charles wasn't a commoner. He was actually a childhood friend of King Henry VIII, and he was already like the Duke of Suffolk prior to the events of the movie.
Right.
In the movie, the couple attempts to sail to the New World to escape together. That never happened. This movie takes place 50 years prior to the earliest attempts to colonize the North America.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that
from
part,
England.
but okay.
And then the Duke's involvement is purely fictitious. It's made up for the movie.
And
he had a wife in real life, and
Okay.
Wasn't like the romantic rival.
And most of these were made for this Disney version, right? Because I feel like the book had most of the right stuff, from what I understand.
I don't know.
Okay.
I just know that in the 1922 movie, she also disguises herself as a boy or a servant.
Okay.
And in that one, Marion Davis actually had to take fencing lessons because she fought off people.
Interesting.
Which didn't happen in this one.
Right. No, it didn't. I wish it did. It maybe would have made it more interesting.
Yeah. I thought the 62 painted backgrounds were amazing because I couldn't tell the difference between painted backgrounds and real backgrounds.
Yeah, it was pretty good. There were definitely a few times where it was more like castle stuff that I could kind of tell. I feel like I'm a lot better now at spotting that than I used to be, because I've been, I always watch like old sitcoms all the time, and like from the 60s to the 80s really was like a lot of like houses or apartment scenes had like all these painted backdrops, and sometimes it's more obvious than others, but definitely in some of the castle sequences I could totally tell.
And then I thought the costumes were great.
The costumes were really good.
And then the only thing I have written down here is the fight/wrestle scene in the beginning was a little weird. I felt like the only reason it was in there was so that Richard Todd could be shirtless, because he was shirtless in Robin Hood as well.
That's right.
I feel like when we watch Roy,
he's probably going to be
a shirtless scene.
Yeah, we'll have to look for it.
And I thought the dance scene was a little slow.
Okay.
But I thought the sword fight was good at the end, but it took forever to get there.
Okay, so that's the best scene of the movie, I think. I think the choreography for it was great. Everybody's really like in character and doing their best. And I agree, the costumes are great, so that kind of lends itself to it. But that was really more or less the only like action in the whole movie. And so that's my biggest problem.
Yes.
I watched it a couple of weeks ago, so you kind of knew going into it I wasn't a huge fan, but here's my biggest issue with it. Not only does it not feel like a Disney movie, which is fine, like a Disney movie doesn't have to fit, A, B, and C, but I feel like after I read that he specifically like chose this movie for Best Picture contention and for Prestige, it all kind of made sense. I was like, well, that's why it doesn't feel like a Disney movie. Like, I feel like a lot of things went by the wayside because he was so focused on making this a prestige picture to compete with. I mean, think about it. At that time, big costume dramas were like all the rage. I don't think we had maybe Cleopatra yet, but we had, things in that vein that were very, grand and epic, and all the studios were doing it, but Disney, didn't have a foot in that door yet. And I feel the same way today. Like, I don't know, when there's a movie that just screams to me like Oscar bait, it just turns me off.
Yeah.
Like Benjamin Button's a good example of that. I mean, it was an okay movie, but it feels like they made it just to win awards. And so once I read that, I was like, yep, that checks all the boxes. Because my big problem with it is I feel like people know the Disney name certainly in the 50s
Yeah.
for family entertainment, kids entertainment. I think kids would be bored with this.
Yes.
Even in the 50s. And I also think adults, there's just not enough for them either, because it's like, the romance is okay.
Yeah.
You know, and the acting is good, but because it's Disney, nothing gets really pushed far enough.
Yeah.
It's all very safe and it's kind of bland.
But a fight scene on the ship, I don't think it was a ship in the 1922 ones.
Okay.
I forget how else, I don't know.
Yeah.
But a fight scene there would have been nice.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think something to mix it up, because you're right. The sword fight at the end is great.
Yes. And I feel
More
like...
of that.
I feel like some of that felt like it was just wasn't even choreographed. I think it was just like go at it. Like
well, that
like,
could be. I
like
mean,
the scene where like they're when it first starts and they're both in the ocean. Like they're
right.
I'm just like kind of felt like almost like the original like Star Wars where like they're just hacking each other kind of thing. Where
okay.
where like later on in like the prequel trilogies, it seemed like it was super choreographed and everything
right.
like that. Where like and like
this, they were just
Empire Strikes
like,
Back.
you just
have
Luke
Luke just like hacking at him with the
that
lightsaber.
could be.
So I mean, I felt like some of it was choreographed, but I felt like some of it was just like just go at it.
Well, it was certainly the most entertaining thing to watch in the whole movie. Whether it was choreographed or not, it looked good.
Yeah.
But I wish, like something maybe in the middle of the movie, in the earlier half, other than that opening scene,
The wrestling, yeah,
could have really, I think, gone a long way, because it clocks in at 92 minutes or something. It's another pretty short one, but this felt way longer to me than a lot of the recent ones we did, and certainly a lot of the animated ones I've done with Joe recently. But the acting's great.
Yeah, all four of the main leads I thought were really good.
Yeah, which is good, because I think some of the issue we've had with the previous live actions is the acting. Bobby Driscoll certainly in Treasure Island, and
Robin Hood was okay.
Robin Hood was better than Treasure Island, I think, in the acting category for at least the leads.
Yeah.
But I would say here they stepped it up even more. I think the acting here really is, on par.
I thought was it Jane Robertson Justice as King Henry was really good.
He was
I
good.
thought he was okay as Little John. But I thought he was
better here.
He was such a great character in this one.
Well, and I wonder like how much of that, and we'll maybe see this in Rob Roy too. I wonder how much of that is just their camaraderie after being in England for a couple years with each other, and going out of the town, getting to know each other, whatever. Maybe it'll be even better in Rob Roy. What did you find about the comedy attempts in this movie? Because there were a few where I was just like, are they going for laughs? Like one of them, I specifically, because I did kind of chuckle, was they were talking about the person like losing their head or whatever, and the king's like, well, that's what pretty much happens when you get your head cut off, whatever. And I was like, is that a joke? Like, are they going for a laugh line here? There were like 2 or 3 parts where I couldn't quite tell if they were doing bits or if they were just, I don't know, winging it. But that stuck out to me too. Obviously,
well, I guess
you didn't
one.
even really notice,
I guess one of the ones I felt like the king had some good lines at one point.
Yeah, they were mostly all from the king.
Like I guess it was in the middle of the dancing scene they try out the new dance, and then his wife gets upset, and then he was just like, okay, whatever.
Yes.
And just started dancing with them.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, they had like a few little moments of that, but I couldn't be sure if they were intentionally playing them for laughs or they were trying to make him kooky or something before they showed us his true... I don't know. It was a little out of place. So... I'm trying to think of anything else that we didn't
have to talk about
touch
this
on.
amazing DVD.
Well, yeah, we're gonna get to that. I can't really think of anything else movie related. I will admit most of these sets were pretty great. The painting and the especially like anything outdoors, I definitely couldn't tell, and I was looking for like
only scenes
not
that,
moving
like,
trees or whatever. But,
the beginning opening scenes, I felt like
Where they're in the castle?
Where they were, like, looking out from the castle, and then they had the wrestling match there. I felt that scene kind of felt a little confined space.
Okay.
A little bit, and it kind of almost reminded me of, like, some scenes in Robin Hood where it was, like, it was a little bit of confined in the castle.
Right.
But then they kind of opened things up. I was like, okay, they actually are showing some stuff.
Yeah, once they got, like, to some of the outdoor stuff, it definitely, the scenery was great.
Yeah.
And I guess the backdrops too, since like you said, it was hard to tell sometimes. All right, so this DVD is bare bones. There's nothing on it except the movie, which I guess a lot of these Disney Movie Club exclusives are. I wish there was something else on it. I don't know what else you'd put on it, but even just to have like Walt's intros on the Disneyland TV show, that might be interesting.
I mean, they did that with.
They've done it with a lot of them.
They did So Dear to My Heart, but then the last couple ones, they haven't done it.
I feel like So Dear to My Heart maybe was one of the earlier ones, so they still cared more about it. I don't know. But unlike some of these other ones, the fact that you can purchase this or rent it on Amazon Prime almost negates this inexistence. So I don't know. I mean, the picture was okay. I think for a lot of the more recent transfers, this is not one of the better ones. Which actually brings me, before we move on, the Technicolor was pretty good in this.
Yeah.
I thought the color was better in this than in Treasure Island or Robin Hood. Granted, Treasure Island is in a darker place anyway, so I sort of give it a pass for that, but I thought the Technicolor of Robin Hood was not as good as this, which makes sense because of the whole costumes and the prestige of it all. So I'll give it that. But, yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was anything that special picture-wise, so I'm going to just leave the DVD with a C.
Okay.
I mean, it's fine. But I don't know. I feel like the movie also is about in that range. I think I'll give it a C+, for sort of... Walt is obviously attempting something new here, and I'll give him credit for that. The acting's great, the costumes, the scenery, all of that. But it's very, very boring, and I don't know who the audience is.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
I would probably say, as a viewer right now, it's probably a C+.
Okay.
For its time, I will give it a slight bump and call it a B-.
Okay.
Because the dialogue and the acting is really good.
The snappy dialogue is something new for sure.
And I felt like, even though there was a silent version of this before, and it's not the most original thing, I thought she was a strong female character, and I don't know.
She really is.
Like, in the 1950s, I mean...
I wonder how much of that is Glynis Johns, because you'll remember in Mary Poppins, she's on the suffragettes and trying to get the vote and everything for women. So she may be just a big champion for women's rights and strong women or whatever her whole career. I don't know.
Yeah, but I thought her character alone is worth the watch. Okay. So, I mean, entertainment value probably a C+, but I mean,
but even back then. Do you think there's a wide audience for this movie? I feel like even back then, kids would be like, "I'm bored with this." Their parents would be like, "Man, you guys need to make out more," or whatever. It's in that sweet spot of like, not for anybody.
I still think,
except I guess the Academy.
I still think it's kind of worth it. Worth to watch. I would give it a B- for its
B-,
time.
okay,
but. Right now, if you're going to watch this, I think it's C+ entertainment. If you're watching it like we are for historical content and value, it's an interesting watch.
Well, that's true. I haven't seen any, I don't think, that I can totally like not recommend. I mean, Alice in Wonderland's not great, but I think all the ones we've seen, I can at least say, like, yeah, they're definitely worth a watch. I would say this is worth a watch. I mean, it's not a negative grade, but all right. I guess I'll give it. I'll say B- with you, only because of Glynis Johns' great performance and the strong character.
Yeah. I'm going to curve it.
All right.
And give it a B-.
We do like to curve.
Yeah.
That's true. All right. So our next one, like you mentioned, is The Living Desert.
Living Desert.
Which, if y'all want to catch that on Disney Plus, you can, and watch it with us. I think I'm going to try and seek out if YouTube has the original not not the original from the 1902 or whatever, but the 1922-23 version of this movie. Because now I'm kind of curious as to like,
It is.
is it a lost movie?
No, I think it's in the Library of Congress. They restored it. It's on DVD in.
Really?
Ooh, I think
you can get it on DVD.
I think you can get it on DVD. I think it was released in 2017 or something like that.
All right. Well, now I might actually get it on DVD. I guess.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
From what I was reading under, just because I clicked on IMDb and it was like movie connections, I was like, what is this connected to?
Yeah.
And then it showed me the other two versions.
Wow.
I clicked on the 1922 version and I read some trivia about it.
Well, if it's in Library of Congress, that's like pretty legit.
I think that's what they said. Back then, at some point, some magazine had a poll and it was rated in the number 10 in the top 10 movies of
all time. Wow.
Yeah. I don't know what poll that was.
Birth of the Nation was probably number 1, and Charlie Chaplin was number 2.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's interesting. Now you've piqued my interest because I'm wondering how much more exciting it is. Because this I didn't think was exciting.
It is a silent movie, so
yeah.
I mean, there's not dialogue.
There's not dialogue. There's not the whip smart Gilmore Girls.
There's the dialogue screen.
Which tell you the words. Yeah. So. Well, sometimes they have good like honky tonk music though underneath it. I do. This movie would definitely not be the same without the snappy dialogue.
Yeah.
I mean that's one of the key parts of the movie.
It was a hit then, so
all right.
How it holds up.
Well, you've piqued my interest on that, Tim, for sure. All right. Well, that will do it for this week's edition of Dan Does Disney. We're gonna start cranking these out. I was looking at the list last week with Joe when we did Peter Pan. You and I are doing like the next 8 or something in a row.
Yeah, and I think they're all available on Disney Plus.
Okay.
Oh no, Rob Roy isn't. So it goes.
Okay, I have Rob Roy though.
It goes
so we'll
Living Desert, Rob Roy.
Another documentary, I think, right?
Maybe, or is it 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Davy Crockett, and then the documentary? I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
Where the
I
second
don't know.
documentary comes in, but
there is one coming up. Yeah. Yes, all of those though are before the next animated one, which is Lady and the Tramp.
Yes.
So yeah, we've got our work cut out for us, but all of these, the beauty of doing this show now that Disney Plus exists has to be so much more convenient. I mean, I've had some of them on DVD that aren't on Disney Plus, but it's great to have these documentaries on Disney Plus. So we'll talk about Living Desert next time. But all right, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Comment below, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
All right.
I wore a Disney shirt today too. From Tangled.
Oh, I was wondering what that was from.
The Snuggly Duck.
Wow, good old Tangled.